Today we're going to be talking a little bit about recovery and what it feels like and why it's often confused with coasting. Now, I coined the term coasting to describe this feeling when you're going along. You're feeling it's a combination of factors. It's either I'm feeling okay-ish, I'm feeling some anxiety and some chronic guilt waxing and waning, but I'm okay-ish. That's not recovery, okay? But we've all been in that state and it's a hell of a lot better than being like in crisis mode. Then you've got coasting where I'm feeling pretty crap, but I can survive. But the energy to get better is too much than I want to spend at the moment. I don't want to use that amount of energy. It's too difficult. It's too hard to improve further than this. This is as good as it gets. This is what recovery must be. Sort of another phrase that I coined, just sort of lumping it, where you're just bringing along a weight on your back, but you're feeling pretty crap. Okay? Now, that isn't recovery. Now, if you think of something like a hangover, it's subjective, right? You know what you feel like, but the other person can't see it. So if you take me, for example, I was out quite late yesterday, but I'm not I'm a bit tired, but not super tired. But how tired I am is subjective. It's relative to me. Like, I could then go and work out, have something more to eat and feel a bit better and then be okay, right? I didn't even drink that much yesterday as an example, but I'm saying it's subjective in relation to how you feel, right? But the problem is where people think that, okay, this is how I feel, others must feel like that, that's what recovery is. And that message is completely lost in the OCD community, because what happens is, if we just go across most OCD books definitely don't get OCD. That's a fact. How do we know that? Well, we can just use a simple example. If the concept of just let a thought float through your head like a cloud and drift out worked for the majority of OCD sufferers, forums would be empty, nobody would be that stuck, and OCD wouldn't be that much of a disorder. But it would seem like that is the way to recover if you didn't have OCD, plus if people with mild OCD had recovered like that, you would presume that that's all that's needed. Hence why that is so common to see in the OCD community. Now with coasting, also what you see in the OCD community is people that are still stuck, having lots of panic attacks, going, oh, I'm recovered, I'm feeling much better, I'm recovered now, when they actually aren't, but they think that's recovery. I used to see that by loads of OCD advocates in the past, like, I've just had my wedding, just had 5 panic attacks, hashtag OCD recovery. That is not OCD recovery, right? That is not OCD recovery. That's doing exposure if you had ROCD and going to wedding. That's good, you're bringing it for the ride, but that's not recovery. And the problem with that message being lost is then people who are trying to recover feel like, fucking hell, it's hopeless, because if that's what recovery is, what's the point of even aiming for that? Because that's all I'm going to get. So I might as well just put up with this, I'm doomed. And that is then also, believed because of so many medical websites saying like, oh, such and such percentage never recover, hashtag quotation marks treatment resistant OCD, which I've never seen a case of ever in my life, to make clear. It's always a belief that I can see straight away. That's the reason they're stuck. And so people then get used to the idea that OCD is just lumping it, waxing and waning. Even if you look up the definition of OCD recovery, the definition of OCD recovery is sort of waxing and waning, and you're just sort of pulled left and right, but you manage on most days, even by most of the main places. And I can't believe this. It blows my mind. It's like, well, when it waxes and wanes because of a belief, because of something you're scared of, or something that you're really irrational about. So once that changes, then it doesn't wax and wane. I know that because I can feel in my head. There is no chronic anxiety. There is no chronic guilt. I can experience that. I can feel that. And it's like, I know that when I get anxious, it's because I'm thinking of something irrationally. I've started to go irrational again. Or I'm trying to internally control and fight. Or some fear of fear. Oh my God, if that's going to make me anxious, and then if I'm rational, well, so what if it makes me anxious? So what if I feel really bad again? It doesn't bother me. So therefore, the anxious cycle's not started. That's not lumping it. It doesn't start the internal cycle because I'm not afraid. Now, it's not an easy thing to understand. Albert Ellis didn't have an easy job teaching people unconditional self-acceptance. He used to say time and time again, it's very frustrating, particularly working with OCD sufferers, because it takes lots of practice and people don't do the practice and people don't do the reading. And he used to say, I find it infuriating at times. And then that got misinterpreted. People were like, oh, even Albert Ellis had a hard time treating OCD. No, he had a problem because people weren't doing the work. So it's like anything. It's like saying, okay, it's really hard to lose weight if I go to the gym once a week. Yes, that obviously is going to be very hard because you're not putting in the work to get better. And it's obviously hard even when you put in the work to change your perspectives, look at things differently. It's tricky. It's not easy. Otherwise, everyone would be recovered. But it's so important to highlight this because otherwise what happens is like when I do my job and I just look at the statistics with OCD and all the things, it's just madness. How we're in this year today, 2022, and like OCD is by the majority completely misunderstood, and all this thoughts of thoughts, leave clouds pass through your head is so light. It's like I say, trying to paint a house in the rain. It doesn't work. And then people are like, oh, you must have been doing it wrong when someone's stuck like that. And it's like, no, they're definitely not doing it wrong. It doesn't work. I spent years trying to just leave thoughts there, deep breathing, like relaxation. That don't work if you're completely convinced that you did something in the past and you've got chronic guilt banging away because it's like, this isn't OCD, this is real, you're the exception. And that's how people feel with real event and false memory OCD. And it's not understood. And it's like, but you shouldn't venture into the content of the thoughts. If I didn't venture into the content of the thoughts, I wouldn't have got to unconditional self-acceptance because what isn't, and this is counter-productive as well, this phrase where people will often say, they'll say, oh yes, you shouldn't venture into the thoughts. But then if that was true, all exposures would be the same for everyone because you would never venture into thought, but they're not because an exposure is targeted at the specific thing the person fears. So therefore, you do need to venture thoughts. If I hadn't ventured into thoughts, I have no doubt at all I would be still stuck today. Chronic guilt, chronic anxiety. I know it's fact because until I saw that whatever I did in the past didn't warrant me feeling chronically anxious and chronic guilt, then the cycle was like, you deserve to beat yourself up 24/7 in your head, chronic guilt pumping away. You don't deserve a second's rest after what you did. And I'm not letting you off the hook with just you trying to tell yourself it's OCD. But this isn't understood. Why isn't this understood? It's so obvious when you look at it. If you look at history, look at how far we've come in the world in the last 100 years. The world's completely different, obviously, in 1922. Completely different world where they barely understood so many things that we do today. We're on this timeline where OCD is like massively changing. And like hopefully the work we're doing is changing that. And it's like you can see how much that's transitioned quickly. Look at just when SSRIs were invented, benzos were invented. You're only talking the last 50 years. And then you're looking at how ERP and exposures and all these different things, which were laid out for 5,000 years in Stoicism, facing fears, seeing things, nothing scary, only a perception. But because humans are so damn irrational, they miss all of this stuff and misinterpret it. Why OCD is being misinterpreted so far along the way. So we're only now breaking through with like people recovering lots. Whereas before it was just so many barriers. Like for me, the biggest barrier was that thoughts of thoughts stuff. It's like, yes, thoughts of thoughts is key. Learning to leave thoughts there. That's obviously a key part of the journey. I'm not like when I was stuck in trying to work out every single thought and exposed to every thought and rational and unconditionally accepted thought. No, you're leaving thoughts to pass. But if one's locked, stuck on 24/7 for years and it ain't budging, you can't just relabel it OCD, reattribute it and move on. How many books talk about that? That doesn't work. And the fact it doesn't work is then the person goes in, they sit there, they think, oh, I must be doing it wrong, which I thought for years, I must be doing it wrong. Until I realised it doesn't actually work. Because it was so clear in Albert Ellis's book, where he's referencing Korzybski, and he says, Korzybski said, God may forgive your sins, but your nervous system won't. This isn't a reference to religion, but it's saying that your nervous system doesn't back down if you're scared of something. That's what it feels like. That's how it is. It doesn't back down because you're telling yourself it's just OCD, it's just a thought. It's always coming back with, what if it isn't? What if it isn't? So until I took the edge off of the core fear of the main thing, then it started to come off like layers of an onion. Now, if I could just crack open my head and show you and go, look, there you go, there's the beliefs, that's what I've done, that you would say, I can exactly see why he isn't experiencing chronic guilt and chronic anxiety. And I can exactly see why thoughts wouldn't work. The only example I can explain why thoughts doesn't work, if suddenly you went into a doctor's clinic and said you've got cancer, you can't tell yourself it's just a thought. You can't tell yourself that because it's real. You have got cancer. So therefore, you have to work on accepting cancer, accepting yourself, accepting your health, accepting your life, and accepting death, because that is the situation that you've suddenly just been moved into. So that's so key in realizing that, because when I talk about robust recovery, and I say robust recovery, that's a recovery that's not going to be thrown off. I'm not talking about where someone's, I'm feeling good, bang, crisis. I'm feeling like whatever life throws, you can handle it. Now, I don't know how well I would handle cancer. I might find it very difficult first. I'm pretty sure everyone finds it difficult first. But I'm sure with the level of rational thinking I have, and how I view death and how I view life, I'm pretty confident that most life adversities, I tend to handle them better than most people because I'm very rational. And that's not being arrogant, it's just how I see my life. I rarely worry about anything. I'm rarely disturbed by anything. People who know me always say, Rob doesn't really worry about things like other people do. He's very sort of, he's at peace with life things. He doesn't need much. He's very comfortable with that. That doesn't mean I'm distant. I connect with people, all these things, but I don't feel disturbed, traumatized by things. You don't have to see me in days like, oh my God, I can't handle this, it's too much. That never happens. But when I was stuck with OCD, it felt like that every day. Every day it felt like that, because I had all those black and white, rigid, irrational beliefs pumping back and forth all the time, fueling up chronic anxiety, fueling up chronic guilt, fueling up chronic shame, self-defeating beliefs over and over and over and over. So I know that journey. And, I talk passionately now about this in terms of something that I'm really interested in, really passionate about, changing OCD. But I could also say it in a calm voice and just say it nice and calmly and talk about it gently. It wouldn't make any difference. It's passion because I'm excited about it. It's not passion I need to tell you. It's passion that I'm excited about changing OCD and helping people not be in a position like I was for years, in my bedroom, stuck, chronic guilt, chronic anxiety, feeling nobody understands. Well, nobody did understand. Feeling not knowing where to turn, not thinking, how will I ever get out of this? Thinking, how will I ever not feel guilt and anxiety chronically again and enjoy any moment in my life? That's how I felt for years, and that's why I do what I do. So yeah, that's to give you an idea, a bit about OCD recovery and what it is and what it isn't. So you can really see that. We'll be doing lots more videos covering that in great detail so you can get more of an understanding of how that operates. So I hope that helped today. And I will see you guys on another YouTube video probably later today. All right, guys, take it easy. See you later.